I just went skiing in Europe for the first time. After having been skiing in Europe and in North America, I want to talk about the biggest differences so that you know whether or not you should go skiing in one or the other. Beware, I am going to over-explain every single thing in this video, and there's going to be a bit of math, also that you guys have the most amount of information possible when considering your next ski trip. Now, without any further ado, let's talk about skiing in Europe. The overarching question when I went to ski in Europe was whether or not it is better than skiing in North America, and to be honest, I was expecting it might be so different that I couldn't give a definite answer to that question, which is exactly the case. We're going to go through 8 categories, discuss each side, and then award a point to whichever region is better in that category. You can probably guess why I don't have a definitive answer now. Of course, this whole video is solely based upon my opinions, but I'm going to explain all of my reasoning in great detail throughout. I'm not trying to persuade you one way or the other. I'm just comparing each so that you can be informed about what region does each best. Alright, let's begin with category number 1, snow. Snow is a ski resort's most valuable resource. As such, it should come as no surprise that if one region gets more snow than the other, I'm going to favor that region, regardless of the fact that ski resorts have no control over nature. In Europe, most ski resorts in the Alps average around 100 inches of snow per year, with some of the higher snow totals tending to come in around the 150 mark. Other ranges, such as the Pyrenees and Carpathian, get less snow than that, averaging around 50 inches each year. In North America, resorts in the West tend to get between 150 and 250 inches of snow annually, with some of the higher averages topping out near 400. Meanwhile, most East Coast resorts average about the same as the Alps at 100 inches. As you can tell, mountains in the western part of North America have the upper hand in this category. European snow is very heavy and wet, similar to what you can find on the North American East Coast. Meanwhile, the western snow in North America is much lighter and fluffier. Europe has very good snowmaking infrastructure to make up for the lesser natural snow totals, but that man-made snow is very icy and slick and not too pleasant to ski on. After all of that, you have to consider climate change. It's no secret that the whole Earth is warming, but it's also pretty clear that the consequences in the near future are much more dire for Europe, where experts are predicting the end of skiing as we know it in the Alps as soon as the turn of the century, with other resorts in other ranges going even sooner. As such, years such as this season, in which the snow quality is, on the whole, absolutely terrible in Europe, are going to get more and more frequent. North America will see the same consequences, but at least for now, the West is hanging on. Needless to say, I'm giving the win to North America in the snow category. Number 2, crowd flow. In North America, it is common for a lift to have a trail pod. That means that each lift has a bunch of trails that all come from and to it. Take, for example, the Timberline Express at Copper Mountain, Colorado. Its pod contains all of these trails here from High Point to Soliloquy, 10 trails to be exact. In Europe, one lift typically only serves 2 or 3 main runs. Looking at this map of Isola 2000, a ski resort just inside of France's border with Italy, you can see that the ski area layout follows this principle. If we zoom into this lift, called Cum Gros, which has the same practical capacity of Timberline at 2,400 people per hour, you can see that it really only serves 2 runs, Sierra and Louveteaux. That means that mathematically, if Timberline and Cum Gros are both running completely full, Sierra and Louveteaux should have 5 times as many people on them as, say, Windsong. Now, of course, that's in a perfect world, so it's not quite like that, but you get the point. The runs in Europe are generally more crowded than the runs in North America. On the flip side of the argument, lifts tend to be opposite. A ski resort in North America that only a few of you will know claims to have 275 trails. That ski area is called Vail. It has 33 lifts. That's 8 1/3 runs per lift. The average capacity of a Vail ski lift is just about 2,000 people per hour. Take that and divide it by the 8 1/3 runs that this average lift has, and each run has an uphill capacity of 240 people per hour at Vail. On the European side, a ski resort in France known as Val d'Isère, commonly hailed as one of the best ski resorts in the world, has 156 trails. It has 79 lifts. That's almost exactly 2 runs per lift. Those lifts have an average capacity of somewhere near 2,000 people per hour, just like Vail's. Take that 2,000 and divide it by the 2 trails each lift has, and you find that contrary to the 240 number at Vail, each run has an uphill capacity of 1,000 people per hour at one of Europe's best resorts. All that those numbers mean is that lift lines are shorter and move faster in Europe. Considering the more crowded runs of Europe, this brings up a classic dilemma of quantity versus quality. On the one hand, you can get more runs per day in Europe because of the shorter lift lines, but on the other hand, each run is more fun in North America because the trails are way less busy than those in Europe. Pick your poison. Do you want more fun runs, but less of them, or do you want more runs, but less fun? I would much rather pick quality over quantity, which is why I give the win to North America in this category. The third category is lift infrastructure. While all of those numbers we just talked about are certainly an aspect of this category, I'm much more focused here on the lift types, not their capacities. Generally, it is clear that European resorts invest much more into their lift fleets than North American resorts. In North America, it is common that larger ski areas will have a fleet of some detachable chairlifts, mostly quads with a few six-packs, with some fixed-grip chairlifts in redundant locations and locations far away from the base area. This generally tends to give the resorts the capacity they need, but no extra. Europe is much more overbuilt. At the larger ski resorts, the standard lift seems to be a detachable six-pack, with those being present in the most unnecessary places where a fixed-grip double would have done just fine. I'm looking at you, Maribel. Europe has many more gondolas and bubble chairlifts to provide comfort on cold and snowy days than North America does. Europe also has a much higher percentage of detachable lifts, with fixed-grip lifts becoming nearly extinct in some of the largest resorts. However, European ski resorts can also have surface lifts, typically detachable Poma platters, in some key locations. Generally, it seems like European lift systems are more boom or bust than North American structures, which are much more consistent. Larger European resorts tend not to have as many lift lines because of the numbers we discussed above, and also because lifts that would be just a fixed-grip triple in North America are built as detachable six-packs or gondolas. This means that oftentimes you won't be sharing a gondola or chairlift with anyone, or with only one or two other people. In North America, you often find yourself in a dilemma where you need to pick the lesser of two evils, sitting on a painfully long and slow fixed grip, or waiting in line and getting on a quad chair with 3 strangers. By itself, I'm not sure whether I'd rather chance a gondola or a surface lift, or if I'd rather know that I'm going to be on a fixed or detachable quad. However, the shorter lines and lifts not being filled to capacity sways me to give Europe its first point. Next, we'll discuss the terrain and scenery. As a general rule for terrain, North America is more varied. Resorts in western North America often have runs cut through the forest lower down, and some high alpine meadow, open bowl, cornice, or chute terrain at the higher altitudes. Most east coasts only have runs cut through the trees. It is standard in western areas that blacks and double blacks are not groomed. This leads to areas like Mary Jane at Winter Park, which is infamous for its endless black mogul burners. With groomers, moguls, tree skiing, bowl skiing, and extreme terrain is extremely varied in North America. In Europe, this is not the case. Europe generally has 2 types of ski areas, the large destination resorts, which are all mostly above treeline, and the smaller ski areas that tend to be mostly or all below treeline. At both, trails are cut, either through the rocks or through the forest. In Europe, most people don't go off of those trails, whereas in North America, it is commonplace to duck into the woods or off-piste into the high alpine to find some powder. As such, Europe does not really have any bowl skiing, tree skiing, or extreme terrain. The other major difference in terrain is that almost every single run at European resorts is groomed, mostly due to the higher usage of each individual piste in Europe. As such, moguls don't exist as much either. Europe uses a different rating system, having greens and blues the same, but having a red designation between blue and black. Red is typically similar to a blue-black at a resort like Mammoth or a double blue at a resort like Telluride. Blacks are typically the same steepness as a black in North America, but remember that most every run is groomed in Europe. Europe has many roads to connect areas, but almost none of these roads are flat enough to require pushing or skating. Meanwhile, North America has plenty of flat spots. As far as scenery, the high alpine pistes of Europe can be quite monotonous, while the forest runs in both Europe and North America are much more interesting. pistes in Europe tend to wind and twist around much more than runs in North America, which tend to go straight down the mountain. Some people find that more fun to ski, and some don't. The one major thing Europe has on North America here is views. With no trees, high-altitude European resorts tend to have never-ending views. However, I still have to give the point to North America simply for the variety of terrain it offers. A smaller and more often overlooked point is our fifth category. It is titled Busy Periods. In North America, there is one day of the week you want to avoid skiing if you can at all help it. That day is Saturday. Saturday is easily the most popular day of the week, and most resorts are completely different on weekdays when they're practically empty in comparison to the crowds of the weekend. Europe is not like that. During the holiday periods, most vacation rental apartments and hotels run from Saturday to Saturday. That means that during the periods in which most visitors are coming in for a long stay, the holidays, Saturdays are pretty empty as people arrive and leave the resorts. In the less busy periods of the season, weekends can be busier, but not near as drastically as in North America. North American resorts tend to have 4 major busy periods, one from the week before Christmas running through the week after New Year's, one on the MLK holiday weekend in January, one on the President's Day holiday weekend in February, and one throughout the month of March, as many school districts and universities have a spring vacation. Of course, regular weekends through December, January, February, and March are also pretty busy. In Europe, there are 2 major busy periods, one running from the weekend after Christmas through the week after New Year's, and the other throughout the month of February as school systems and universities have their winter vacations. The week leading up to Christmas is quite empty in Europe, as that week is traditionally used for visiting family, while the weeks after Christmas are much more busy as people head to the mountains on vacation. Try to avoid skiing at any large resorts in February in France, as those are the definitively busiest times at any of those large resorts. My advice about skiing in February in Europe is to try to find smaller ski areas, as they don't have as big of an influx of families spending their vacation there. Despite the February situation, I love the lesser crowds on weekends in Europe. This is a pretty easy point for Europe. The 6th category is the on-mountain experience. This refers to everything that you'll experience on the mountain that doesn't have to do with the physical action of skiing. The 2 main differences I found in this category were navigation and on-mountain dining. In North America, signage is pretty clear-cut and straightforward. The signs will look a little something like this, with an arrow and the name of the trail. It's never particularly hard to figure out what trail you're on. Then you can use a trail map or the knowledge you have from Insider's Guide to navigate to where you want to get to. European signage is similar, but the signs are not quite as clear, as they don't have arrows. Additionally, some signs will have the destination rather than the trail name. For example, looking at this Trois Vallées trail map, if you are taking the piste Mont de la Chambre, the sign might read Les Menuits and point to the piste, but not explicitly say the name of the piste. The other difference, dining, is a far more significant difference. In North America, a majority of on-mountain dining is cafeteria-style dining, in which you grab some food from whichever food station you want, pay at a row of grocery store-style registers, and then find a seat in a large dining room with long tables for you to share with others. Some restaurants, such as Sunspot at Winter Park, have a section of the building dedicated to this, and the other half built as a true restaurant. Generally, the vibe you'll get at on-mountain restaurants in North America is that of speed. It's designed so that you can spend as little time as possible eating, in order to spend more time on the slopes. In Europe, each restaurant is a true restaurant, save for the very few cafeteria-style chalets like Chalet du Touron in Europe's busiest ski resort of Val Thorens. Some will have a little snack-style window on the outside that you can grab a sandwich or burger in and sit out in some nice beach-style chairs. This is nice when you want to get back on the slopes quickly, but it's only good on sunny days and is generally overpriced and not all that great a quality of food. Most of the time, you'll find yourself spending over an hour eating at a true restaurant in Europe. Most people say that it's more expensive to eat in Europe, but I have found that right now, with the euro and the dollar very similar in value, the food is similarly overpriced worldwide, but neither is significantly more than the other. Due to the quickness that North American dining offers, I will give North America the point here. Going hand in hand with our previous category, the seventh is off-mountain experience, aka the resorts. Throughout the past decade, it had been common knowledge that European resorts were overall more expensive than North American resorts. However, at the time I am writing this, the US dollar is extremely strong against the euro, which actually makes prices in Europe and North America quite similar, with the only major price difference I still noticed being in the price of buying gear. European resorts also tend to be more picturesque than North American resorts. One of the things that contribute to this is a lack of large parking lots and garages. Many European villages have small parking garages that are entirely disguised and don't stick out like a sore thumb. As for large mall-like parking lots, well, they don't really tend to exist in Europe. Most people in Europe don't just go skiing for a day. A vast majority of people stay for a week, and the rest stay for longer or shorter. In North America, it is commonplace to drive to the mountain every day. In Europe, very few people drive each day to the resort. Because fewer people are driving, transport within the European resorts tends to be better than that of their North American counterparts. It is commonplace in Europe for everyone to take shuttles, and some of the largest resorts even have long gondolas or trams that come from the highways and towns down in the valleys. There are certainly some ski resorts in North America that have good public transit, but for the most part, Europe takes the cake here. Another aspect of the very few people driving means that there is much more of an abundance of walking distance lodging in Europe. Most large ski resorts in North America will have a few large hotels and condo blocks in their village, with the lion's share of people staying in hotels or vacation rentals in the nearest town. In Europe, almost everybody stays right in the village, at most a couple-minute shuttle ride to the slopes. Something I don't typically bother with is après-ski. From what I've read from fellow reviewers, it appears that the après-ski scene is much stronger in Europe. Overall, a good summary statement for Europe is that everything is more expensive, but is higher quality and more convenient. Me, I'm willing to spend a couple extra bucks for the higher quality. As such, Europe gets the point. The eighth and final category of this video is people. In North America, you'll typically see a good mix of skiers and snowboarders. Snowboarding is on the come up in Europe, but skiing is still extremely dominant, so in Europe you'll see way more skiers than boarders. Now, Americans, this is not intended to offend any of you, but I have found that the people in Europe are generally much nicer as far as on-mountain interactions go. People actually respect the rule that the downhill skier has the right of way. If you get into a crash in Europe and you were the uphill skier, it doesn't matter how erratic the downhill skier was, you're still responsible. As much as possible, people try to respect your space. When people got too close to me, they always apologized. That never happens in North America. It was quite a welcome change. In Europe, everyone puts down the bar. If you get on a chair with a stranger, there's no need for asking, the bar is coming down. I have never ever ridden a lift in Europe without the bar down, and I have never seen anybody else ride without it down either, and it's a good thing. The bar works, people. If you don't believe me, go to liftblog.com and ask the nice people over there to give you some stories and numbers. Please, people, in both Europe and North America, give everyone some space, put the bar down, and please, for the love of God, say you're sorry if you almost or do hit somebody. This category is a no-brainer for me. Europe gets the point. And now, we find ourselves a dilemma, with both regions having won 4 categories. There is no clear-cut overall winner. I cannot definitively tell you whether or not skiing in Europe is better than skiing in North America, and to be honest, I think that's for the better. Hopefully, you now have the information you need to decide for yourself. If there's any information you would like about either region that I didn't cover in this video, please go ahead and ask about it down below. I'll do my very best to tell you anything you want to know. I really appreciate you all watching this video, especially if you made it all the way to the end. We've got plenty more Europe content coming soon. Stay tuned. All my love, I'm out.